Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. Today I am coming at you with this new video idea series that I want to try out. It's not like revolutionary by any means. It's basically just like book recommendations, sometimes very specific or kind of more broad recommendations. And this is just basically my attempt to like talk about more books that I otherwise wouldn't get to mention on my channel, since I typically just do like the very standard TBRs and wrap-ups. But I just want to talk about more books that I've read before that don't get mentioned in these videos. Again, these are just like 5 random book recs. They're not necessarily like my favorite. They're just like some books that I thought I'd mention, some books that may not get mentioned enough because they're not new releases, or maybe they've flown under the radar a little bit. So for example, this video is just like my classic teen SFF reads. So I was going to title this just like classic teen SFF, but depending if you're older than me or younger than me, or whenever you got like your love of like, so I was gonna title this like classic teen SFF, but depending on like if you're older than me or younger than me, whenever you started reading sci-fi fantasy, that might change. They are by no means like perfect or like top 5 like ever. They're just kind of some that I wanted to talk about. I'm 24 years old and I started reading sci-fi fantasy when I was like in middle school. These are pretty, these are at least like 10 years old since I first read them. They might be a little bit dated. They might have some concepts, or they might have some content that is like not necessarily like good content. Some stuff might be problematic, some stuff might kind of like outdone, outdated, whatever have you. But yeah, I really liked these when I was younger and I just kind of want to talk about them. So yeah, let me know if there's any specific kind of recommendations that you're looking for. So that's pretty much all I wanted to say to like preface this video and this like video concept idea. Again, not revolutionary, just what I'm doing. These are not necessarily in any order, they're just like random book recs, except for the last one that I'm going to talk about. The last one was like my favorite book growing up. Let's get started. So the first series that I want to talk about is the Ugly series by Scott Westerfeld. So I think this series was first published in, let's see, 2005. So it's been quite a while, 15 years. Pretty popular sci-fi that I think some people read. I feel like more so people kind of like read the first book and then just like never continued on with the series. I've read all 4 of these, and I think the author like continued in this universe, but I never picked up anything after extras, and I don't think I want to. So this series is set in like the kind of near far future, after like some sort of like apocalyptic end of the world event where society fell, and they eventually rebuild into the society that our characters live in. So the people in this world know like what happened to like our society, because ours is the one that like crumbled and fell. So they know what went wrong, and they know like the solutions to fix it. So this world is very high tech, and it doesn't really use like the same like kind of fossil fuel kind of non-renewable resources that our world uses. They're very high tech, and our main character Tally is about to turn 16 years old, and in this world, like before you turn 16, you're something called like an ugly. That's like your designated place in the world, and before that I think they're called like littles or littlies or something. So she is technically ugly, but like she's basically normal, right? She has like a few flaws, but she's not like she's like normal. There's this idea drilled into like these teenagers that they're ugly, and when they turn 16 they get this surgery that makes them like super stunningly gorgeous. And when you turn 16 and you get this surgery, you like immediately get moved to this like very like paradise kind of high-tech mega mansion type city, and your only job is to really like have fun. I don't think you even have to like go to school or anything. You're just like there to like be pretty. Like every teenager, Tally wants this. Unfortunately, she has this new friend that she recently met at the beginning of the book, and her friend runs away, and Tally is told by like the governing forces that if she doesn't find her friend, she herself can't turn pretty. So Tally has to go on this adventure to find her friend and convince her friend to come back and become pretty. This story is like really far-fetched and has this weird different concepts that I've never read in any other type of story before. I think Scott Westerfeld can get these weird concepts and like make it like, yeah, that totally makes sense, you know what I mean? And the story has like your typical like teen YA, like young revolutionary type characters trying to like save the world in a world that's like posing as like the perfect utopia, but there's definitely some shady things going on in the background. You can probably imagine what world would tell teenagers that they're ugly, and if they have to get all these plastic surgeries they turn pretty, and then they can just like, you know, do whatever the fuck they want. There's something fishy going on, and Tally's obviously gonna get like embroiled in all this drama that she doesn't even know exists. So the first 3 books follow Tally and her group of friends. However, the last book, Extras, follows different characters somewhat connected to the original 3 books, but the last book I would say is a little more I guess modern or relevant, since I think social media plays a huge part in the last book, and I think the characters from the last book are from, I want to say, Korea or Japan. I could be wrong, but I'm pretty sure it's Korea. But yeah, I read this series so long ago, and I recently reread them maybe last year or the year before, and it's still one of a kind, fresh. Also, I know the covers have like those like blown up faces, but for some reason I think like these are like the best like blown up like model like people on the covers. I know like a lot of people don't like those types of covers. I think these are really well designed personally, but you know, that's just me. Also, I remember there's this one scene in this first book where Tally's looking through like these old like archived magazines. Essentially she's looking at like Vogue or whatever, and she's looking at these magazines and she's like, wow, all these people on the covers, i.e. like models, are super ugly. And I remember reading that as like a teen and being like, wow, like the expectations that these people, these kids have on what pretty is so different from like what our idea of pretty is. That completely like set me on a loop. Like if these teens look at like Vogue models and be like, wow, ugly, I have no chance. So these next group of books were first published when I was born in 1996, and these are the Night World books by L.J. Smith. These were originally published as like single like individual books, and then they were these huge bind-ups after L.J. Smith's like Vampire Diaries series got super popular again. Her older books got these giant huge bind-ups, so each book contains 3 individual books. So I'm just gonna hold up one. Again, people on the cover. This one's like actually kind of ugly. I mean, all these books are kind of ugly, like designed. It's just like girls on the cover. But so each individual book and each individual bind up are their own like isolated stories, but they all take place in a greater Night World world. And these are like OG like teen paranormal romance. These are published, again, these were published in 1996, so this is like way before Twilight. And yes, like you have teenagers falling in love with like vampires and witches, and I want to say like werewolves and fae. So yeah, are they good? Most are probably pretty bland and generic. So Twilight's not going to be on the list because duh, like everyone read Twilight. But these were like my post Twilight, like what I needed to like quench my like paranormal romance thing that I had. Again, not unique, not perfect. And for some reason I remember the model on the second book being like my favorite. Who does she represent? I don't know, but I remember thinking she was like the baddiest of them all on these covers. They're all kind of like small, pretty bingeable, really quick reads. But yeah, I read all of these and I really had fun. So following like the paranormal, supernatural vibes, post Twilight vibes, I really devoured the House of Night novels by Kristen Cass and PC Cass. This is like a mother-daughter writing duo, and I believe they're still like publishing some stuff to this day. I believe these were originally published in, these are much more recent than the last ones, but I'm pretty sure the first one was published in 2007. This was like the original like vampires in a school setting series that I loved. I know some kind of came after that. So the series follows a young girl named Zoe Redbird, who I will have to say she is depicted as part Native American Cherokee. That being said, I have never heard anything in regards to her being part Native American, specifically Cherokee. It could be well done, it could not be well done. This story is about a young girl named Zoe Redbird, and she is going to a normal like American high school, and then she gets marked, which is essentially like this process where someone starts becoming a vampire. You don't get like bitten and turned, you get like chosen by their goddess. If you thought Twilight vampires were like weird and super different, these are like much weirder. In this world, it's like inferred that like a lot of actors, actresses, poets, writers are like vampires, because vampires have like a natural artistic ability. It's weird. And all vampires have this giant like moon tattoo on their forehead with like tons of like other tattoos like around it. It's so weird. So after our character gets marked, she gets sent to one of the American vampire schools, and it's like a boarding school. They take vampire classes. It's very like Gossip Girl type vibes with, you know, paranormal and vampire stuff. I believe there were like 9 to 10 books published within the series, and there's also kind of like spin-offs slash one-off stories. Was it well done? No, I feel like they definitely dragged on at some point, but I remember the first 3 being like excellent. And if you only read the first 3, you probably won't get like a good conclusion to the overall series, but like writing content wise, that's probably the best that you'll get. They're cheesy, they're dramatic, they're over the top. Again, Gossip Girl vibes with like vampires. I never finished the series. I don't know if I want to. I would reread like the first 3 if I was like in the mood. In this video, I could have put like all of my like vampire like boarding school setting books, like Vampire Academy, the Blue Bloods series by Melissa de la Cruz, but this is probably like 100% like the start of my love for like vampire schools or whatever. After that, I have a series that I've never really heard anyone mention. I just happened to get, I want to say most of these from like a library sale or something, and that is the Seer series by Linda Joy Singleton. So this series follows a young girl named Sabine Rose, and Sabine Rose is essentially like some sort of psychic or like medium. She has like the gift, and she lives with her grandmother who also has the gift. Sabine also has kind of like a version of like a guardian angel, like an inner psychic who like gives her advice, and I think her inner psychic's name is like Opal or something. Don't ever actually get to see her, but like our main character like talks to her like in her head or whatever. I believe the first book is about Sabine after she gets kicked out of her old school and sent to live with her grandmother. She gets a vision of this girl who is like in grave danger, and she only has like little clues to find out like who's this girl who's in grave danger. Never heard anyone talk about the series. I never finished the series. I think there's like 5 or 6 books, and I know for sure I read the first 4. I really enjoyed them, and I remember like reading most of these pretty quickly. They're less than 300 pages. I actually remember reading, I want to say the 3rd book first, because I didn't know that this was the 3rd book in a series, and I just like picked it up and I really enjoyed it. So I was kind of lost as to like the personal life that Sabine had, but for the most part it's pretty straightforward. There's like a mystery presented at the start of each book, and like Sabine has to like solve the mystery using her like psychic powers. Love to see it. Love these books. Someone read them so I can talk about them with you. And so the last book I want to talk about is a book that I probably like reread 20 times. I'm not even kidding. So this book is also like my favorite paranormal romance. I don't know why. I just absolutely fell in love with this book. Maybe it was like the stars aligned at the right time, the right moment, the right day, the right mood. But like, I only look back on this book with fondness. I know now that there's like problematic elements to the story, but I still really love it. And there's also a really bad like movie adaptation that like I don't recommend. She like ends up with a different guy. If you've seen like the movie, it's so weird. But that is Blood and Chocolate by Annette Curtis Claus. So this book was originally published in 1997. By the way, this Seer series was published in 2007. I think I forgot to mention that. So again, also kind of old, but not super old. Back to Blood and Chocolate. This was published in 1997. So this book follows a young werewolf girl named Vivian. Vivian and her pack have recently gone through some trauma. They used to own and run this inn kind of in a more like rural, isolated place where they could just be themselves. They can just be werewolves free, whatever. And then something happened, and a few other werewolves died in this traumatic event. This happens very early on in the series, or in the book. It's a standalone. And Vivian and the rest of her pack moved to a more suburban public area, and they're just kind of trying to find their feet. And Vivian doesn't really get along with anyone anymore. She used to be like all about the pack life, but now after these traumatic events, she doesn't really trust a lot of the people in her pack. She's never really trusted humans because she knows like inherently there's something just very different between werewolves and humans, like obviously. And so she feels really alone. She doesn't feel like she fits in her new high school until she meets a boy who she has a feeling might accept her for her for being a werewolf. Throughout the entirety of the book, she's just trying to like test like the waters to see if like she can tell him the truth and tell him like, look, I'm a werewolf. You seem to like maybe be okay with the concept, who knows. This is also very much kind of like a coming of age story, that I think the coming of age part is really well done. I think one part that I really liked about this story is that Vivian is kind of like a bitch. She's not sorry about that at all. That's also kind of why I really like the Vampire Diaries books more than the show, because in those Elena was kind of a bitch, and she's kind of a bitch in here. Vivian's kind of a bitch in here too. I really enjoy that, and she like owns every part of herself. I know I mentioned that Vivian kind of falls for this guy that she goes to high school with. However, there is an also kind of sub like romance that is more has a more prominent age gap that I know a lot of people would not be comfortable with, and I totally understand. I read this when I was like 14 or something, and age gaps weren't like a huge problematic thing in my eyes. I know now that that's different. I know, don't worry, I know. But yeah, my copy has all these tabs. It has a bunch of stuff written in the margins. It's, I don't know, I just read this book so many times, and I don't know, it's not even perfect. I know there's flaws. I just really ended up loving this. Why? I don't know. So that's it. Those are like my 5 classic teen sci-fi fantasy recs. You know, my specific classic teen SFF. I know you all might have something different. I totally understand. These are just some that I brought out. They're not necessarily like favorites. Okay, let's be honest. Some of these are my favorites. Yeah, I just wanted to talk about some more books with you guys. I probably wouldn't have gotten the chance to talk about these if I'm just talking about like wrap-ups and like TBRs. Thank you so much for watching. Let me know if you've read any of these, if you've never heard any of these. Maybe you want to try some more like old school teen SFF now. Let me know what yours are. Obviously, depending on when you grew up, when you started reading, whatever you started reading, this would be, your list would look different. I'd be interested to hear what they are. Feel free to just talk to me about anything in the comments. I'll link all my socials down below. Again, thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in the next video. Peace out.